Hi Dakota, how you doing? Nice craft. Wow, tonality's beautiful. Really nice job. Nice soft lead you used there. That's great. Okay, you're onto something here, as you said. Well, first of all, I agree. I think we all agree that this exercise is considerably different than it seems when you first read through it. So I agree with that. And I just want to mention that I often do this exercise still after practicing design for 25 years. I still get down in there and practice tracing letter forms in situations where a client requests a typeface that I'm not familiar with. I get in there and I really start sketching things out to note the optical relationships and some of the mechanics associated with the typeface. So it's a very practical exercise. So like I said, you're onto something here with this A hanging below the baseline a little bit. And yes, indeed, it does. And that's called overshoot. We see that on curved letter forms. We see it on curved letter forms both in their relationship with the baseline, or I should say all three, their relationship with the baseline, the mean line, and the cap height. So in other words, a capital O will have this overshoot at the top baseline and the bottom mean line. A small o will have overshoot at the bottom baseline. A small lowercase o will have overshoot on the baseline as well as the mean line. So yes, the reason we do that is because optically, this is called optical relationships. And optically, if the O or any curved letter form sits on a line at the same distance as straight letter form will, it's going to look smaller. And that's just an optical illusion, so we kind of counter effect that by increasing the way that the O sits on its respective baseline, mean line, and cap line. Okay, so your kerning or your letter spacing here is very consistent but very, very tight. Now, one thing that you probably learned when reading through this week's materials is that you want the letter forms to appear as though they're consistently spaced. However, the optical illusions and the optical relationships associated with specific letter forms indicate that we have to change the width between letters in order for those to look like they're consistently spaced. Okay, one of the general rules of thumb is that we look at the spaces between letters as we look at volume. Okay, so if we look at the volume of this, never mind that open counter right there, but we've got this volume right here in these two letters. And we can see that these curves right here are going to create a greater volume between those two letters than, let's say, for instance, these two straight letters. Okay, so if you were to pour water in here, and like I said, don't forget that bowl right there, or that open counter right there, just draw that line right there. Imagine pouring water up until it reaches that level, and then pour the same water at the same time in this one. And this one's going to fill up faster because this one has less volume. Okay, so what you want to do when you're spacing letter forms is think about that volume. General rule of thumb here, using sans serif typeface here in this specific word, banana, would be this. Your narrowest kerning, or the least amount of distance between two letter forms, is going to be between your two curved letter forms. Okay, so the smallest kerning between curved letter forms, the next widest kerning between a straight letter form and a curved letter form, and the widest being between two straight letter forms. So theoretically, this would be the narrowest space. This would be a little bit wider, and this would be widest. And you'll see when you make your adjustments, it's going to make a huge difference. And especially when you start getting in on the computer and start playing with kerning, which you should do also while working on this assignment. You should also be subsequently working on the computer just to get kind of an idea of how this works. Okay. As far as your craft goes, like I said, I think you've done a really great job. There's a couple of areas I think that need some improvement. For example, that's a diagonal. That's not a true horizontal. So we've got a couple of other areas that seem to be on diagonal and not true. I'm sorry, I meant to say a true vertical, not a true horizontal. But that does not seem to be a true vertical. Likewise, over here, we start getting a little bit of tilt here on this end. And I want to say your A's are gorgeous. I think the relationships that you established in your rendition of the A's is beautiful. We got that nice variable width stroke right there. That's fantastic. Good depiction of the open counter. And that bowl right there looks beautiful. Really nice job right there. Okay, so moving forward, I'm just looking at the spacing, I think is the issue. A little bit on craft. Let's get those vertical lines on true verticals. and the spacing a little bit. Now, as you've noticed, it looks like you did this. The instructions say to draw the baseline, the mean line, and the cap line, which it looks like you've done. But little tip here, moving forward into your final, draw the baseline, okay? Then place your B on there, get your marking for your cap line, right? Draw your cap line out, make sure those are perfectly parallel, okay? This distance has got to equal this distance, right? Then, so you can't draw your mean line until you have the height of the lowercase letters in the font you're using, right? That's something that maybe you picked up on in the instructions. I know a few students have contacted me and said, hey, wait a second, this doesn't really make sense because according to our reading, mean line isn't a constant. It's a variable based on the typeface. And that's very, very true, right? So hopefully you came across that in your writing. I see you drew the mean line first, but what you want to do in your next rendition is this, or your final submission is, like I said, draw the baseline, place your B, get your marker for your cap line. I'm sorry, draw the baseline, place your cap B, get your marker for your baseline, your cap line, sorry about that, and make sure those are perfectly parallel, perfectly equidistant from each other. Then place a lowercase a, get your mean line down. Make sure those three lines are perfectly parallel, all right? No fluctuation there. That way you'll see, and you can establish your mean line, and that will ensure that your letter forms are consistent size. All right, that's about all I have. So we've got the Kerning game right here. Our Kerning game is, if you just Google the Kerning game, it'll take you to this. It's type.method.ac. Here's the URL right here. But go in here. I usually introduce this on week 2 of the class, but since it's relevant to this assignment, let's go ahead and go in there and practice that a little bit. Make sure you keep your software open too so you can work on Kerning while you're working with these manual sketches as well. So it all kind of fits together in the end, right? Provides a really robust learning experience. Okay. Any questions at all, please let me know. Good job, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your final. Thank you, Dakota.